right, so tips for diagnostics. When I have people mention to me that a station is not doing what it's supposed to be doing, like an end trimmer or pre-mill, guillotine, something like that, it's doing funny things. One of the things that I ask them is to be able to go in and manipulate the different components from the debug screen. Now, on the Biesses, they call it debug. On SCM, they call it something else. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the inputs and the outputs, and we're going to look at their statuses, and we're going to force the status of that input or output to be able to control it. The reason that this is important is, let's say, for instance, that we had, let's find one that we could do. Let's say, for instance, that my rear or my front end trim here was not functioning. In the world of diagnostics, it could be mechanical, it could be electrical, it could be pneumatics, or it could be the controls. So what we want to do is we need to know where to start, and the easiest way to do that is to pick some place in the middle, split it, and then see which direction we got to go. So on this station, for instance, we do have valve. We have a bank of valves down here, and Biesse, they use one of two kinds of valves, or at least traditionally, and you'll see back up in there the solenoids and what appears to be, let me get this where we can shine a light on it if we can. Sorry, it's kind of hard to hold this and the camera and point everything at the same time. Back in here, see that little green dot? On this particular valve, that green dot is a actuator, and it only rotates 90 degrees, and it's very, very soft plastic, so don't get overzealous with it. If you don't have the slot in it, then it is a push button. You just take a small tool and press it. But what it allows you to do is be able to go in and manipulate this and see if something is not functioning. The next step from there is to see whether or not you are, as an option, whether or not you are controlling it from the computer. So if I had a mechanical problem, usually we can see that. Not always, but usually. Maybe it's lubrication, something like that. If it's a pneumatic problem, we can trigger it down here, and perhaps we can move it. And I say perhaps because there are sometimes sequence of events that has to happen in order for you to be able to see something. For instance, if I wanted to tilt this, I have to release the brake and then tilt it, then reset the brake. And sometimes that sequence of events, doing it with the valves by hand, it can be tedious, especially if you don't know the exact sequence. But what we can do is we can come up to the computer and we can manipulate all of those, the inputs and outputs. The example that I'm going to use for you is I'm going to turn on that red light. All right, so I'm going to go up here and we go to Tools, and this process in the Centra software, which is the name for this software, has been pretty similar for the last couple decades. They brought this technology all the way through. Apologize for the noise. The shop is actually up and running today, so it's a little louder today than normal. Or I should say it's normal versus the way that I've had the luxury the last few days. So we go down here to Debug. See if we can get in there to see that. I apologize if the screen is a little bouncy. Kind of hard to see and focus at everything at the same time. This is our debug screen. For starters, you can view this screen typically, again, depends on the version. You can almost always see this screen without a password, but you cannot interact with the machine until you have a password. If you don't have that password, then we need to have a conversation or something like that, because we just don't hand those passwords out, because you give it to the wrong person and you can hose a lot of things up. Okay, but nonetheless, up in these machines, you will see this row across here, up to the top. And it says what field buses that we got. So when I'm going through this, this is not a touch screen. although there are times when I forget it and still try to touch the screen. But if we go up this, we can select different cards inside the machine. The reason that this is important to understand is because if you see this one here, if I can get in, I'm sorry if it's not focusing. See if I can get that, point that on there where it'll see my finger. The one that looks like a little gray box, that is actually one of these servo motors here. So that allows me to see what its address is, its current feedback, things of that nature. If you have any of these that's in red, then it's got some kind of a problem. But generally they're going to be in green. In these, again, to show you why all this is so powerful, is that you'll see one of these, and it'll have codes in here. It says V as in Victor, C as in Charlie, and then a number. And that stands for Visca Cola, which is Italian for glue. And that is the feedbacks from our temperatures. In here, the pre-melter, if we have one, however many zones, heating zones we have, we'll have one of those feedbacks. And you can see these numbers are bouncing around. And they're bouncing around because the thermocouple is doing its thing as the pot is heating up and cooling down, stuff like that. This value that's here is not in degrees. For instance, the pre-melter is not 8 degrees. It's just a feedback. I believe it's in millivolts. But nonetheless, doesn't matter. What we're looking for is that we got feedback. Okay, the next one over, let's go pull another one up here. We go pull another one up here, and it's going to say, I got 2 lines on this one, and it says CG, like Charlie, Gamma, and AA, Alpha, Alpha. These are my encoder feedbacks from the pressure beam, which is your AA, and your chain, which is your C, I think they call it Catalina, something like that. So when the track is running, you will see the value here for your CG will be counting. It'll be constantly moving. So if you have a feedback error from the chain and the encoder, which is way back there in the back, of the tail machine on the outside of the drive sprockets, if you have a feedback error, this will fail to count, or it'll give you a crazy count. And it counts up to 65,635 or something like that. Whatever, 255 times 255. Or 256 times 256, sorry. I forgot my hexadecimals. And then once it gets up to that, it's going to reset and start over again. Okay, then down here, you are going to see AA, and this value that's in here. So as the beam is going up and down, the encoder for the beam is going to send a feedback from here. So between those two, we can see what our encoders are doing. All right, so I hope that part makes sense. So if we're talking on the phone or you're talking with Biesse service and they have you go out to this, that's the kind of stuff that we're looking for. So where this becomes a powerful tool is I can go into this, and let's say I'm getting a message that tells me, like, it thinks that the E-stop is not pressed. Let's do that one as an example. Right now I have the control powers on, and you'll see up here it says, where did it go? 24 volts, which is line 1. The status is red. And it's red with the number 1 in it because that power going through the control circuit coming back is active. So if I press this and I lose it, you can see now my status has gone to red. Or excuse me, gone white, and my unit has gone to 0. Okay, if I reset this, you'll see that it comes back. So all of the sensors, all the way through the machine, whether it's the feedback from the thermocouples or let's find us a read sensor here. Where's the read sensor? We got a sensor down here that determines whether or not these two axes are in potential collision. That goes back to it. The sensors that's in the corner rounders here, that goes back to it. So this is a sensor. senses the magnet inside this air cylinder that knows whether or not, excuse me, can't breathe today. It knows whether or not that trimmer is up or down. Pardon me. Our limit switches, our up and down pressure beam limit switches, they go back through that. So we can use those to test statuses of the machine. All right, so it's a powerful, very powerful diagnostic tool. And at this point, we do not need a password to access this. Where you need a password is to be able to go in this other side, the blue column here. It says force. So if I go into one of these, let's do one of the outputs. You'll see here I have an input column and I have an output column. So you want to make sure that when you're looking at this, that you're on the right column. Sorry, had to get a little bit of breakfast there. Had to get a little liquid breakfast. So what we do is we go into this force and we pull up the correct page that we want to look at. And on this one, I got one here that says red lamp. And the label on this says B is in Baker, A is in Alpha, and then whatever the rest of the input designation is. And it is currently off. So if I look at that, sure enough, it's off. Now if I go up to this and I hit the equal sign, you'll see I get a sub-menu. And I have three options in it. I have equals, which is what the computer wants. Minus, which means I'm going to force it off. I'm going to override and force it off. Or I got plus, which means I'm going to override it and force it on. So it's important that if you force any of these, you understand what you're doing, because depending on what you're doing down there, you can create a collision. So you have to be real careful and make sure you understand what it is that you're jostling around while you're doing it. All right, so should get a little quieter in here. They turned off the dust collector. I'm going to move this to plus, and when I do, you should be able to see. Let me see if I got that in the screen down here. Yeah, you'll be able to see it. It's kind of hard. The screen keeps going out in my phone, goes black, screensaver. We hit plus, and there it is. It comes on. In addition to that, it has now gone red, which is because the output is currently active. I've got it in plus because I forced it, but you'll see over here that now this is highlighted. So if I force an output or an input and it's not equal command status, it stays highlighted. All right? You want to make sure before you put this back into the automatic mode that all of these are back in the natural state, because depending on the version of software, and I say this sparingly, depends on which version of software, these do or do not reset based on when you go out and start a recipe. All right, so I would not count on that resetting. Make sure you, as a diagnostician, resets this. If you don't, you could have a bad day. All right, so the reason I say you could have a bad day is, let's say for instance that you have gone in and forced this trimmer down, and then when it's going in, it will stop because it sees that this trimmer is not up on its limit switch. But if you have the message for the limit switch and you force that limit switch and you override the command that it's looking for, when the machine is processing, it's possible that this could not be in its up position and create a very a dangerous situation for the trimmer, because the panel can catch it, which is the purpose of the safety switch. So you want to make sure that before you press go, if you've been into this screen, that you have corrected all of these. Okay? So that's how you go into your debug. That's how it works. If a recipe